So this is the art right behind the title page after the map. And so on this art, you've obviously got a couple things. You got Bane up here, big Tauren boy. You got Thrall, whose hammer almost looks like it has a crescent moon on it, which is weird. You got Vol'jin. You got Jaina. You got Varian. You got Anduin. You got Tyrande. You got Sylvanas. You got, I think that's Magni or Muradin. And then they're being beset by demons of the Legion. Obviously, which you can see over here on the side, Doom Lords, etc. And then on the other side, old gods, tentacles, bugs. Sylvanas is more facing this side with the old gods, which is interesting, with Tyrande and Thrall. This side is more Vol'jin and Anduin and Varian towards the Legion, which is interesting. And then, of course, at the bottom, you've got the Jailer. So for people that were like, oh, they're not gonna... Like, the Shadowlands lore is irrelevant, like Bellular. That guy's... I don't know what made him think that, because that's such a weird, wishful stretch of the imagination. The Jailer and the Shadowlands are very much a part of the lore. It's real. It's not going away. It's not gonna be destroyed. It's not gonna happen. It is part of the lore. And this art goes pretty hard. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This art goes pretty fucking hard. I think it's pretty sick. And kind of seeing how the chain, at least over here, turns to like more rigid flames, almost like a saw. Doesn't change over here, but the chains down here change. I think that's just kind of interesting as fuck. The Legion's so cool looking, by the way, dude. The art of this Doomguard is so, or this Fel Lord is so fucking awesome. And then at the very top, look what you've got. You've got a brilliant, bright light that looks like a star, a shining star. It's got little stars coming off of it. I would assume that that probably represents Azeroth. Kind of that thing above us. Sun Anshe, potentially. When you look at the Chronicle cosmology chart, that's kind of the way that the light section looks. See how the light section has this, you know, solar entity, seemingly. It actually looks quite like Elune, frankly. But this, like, solar entity with, like, the rays coming off of it, kind of peeking out through it, I feel like that looks pretty similar to what's happening here. It also kind of reminds me of the Red Star a little bit, but, you know, not as much. It's definitely more like this kind of thing. So a representation of the light, and Azeroth could be just a titan of light. And it really could be that simple. I could be, you know, vastly overestimating what Azeroth is, in that she is creation, and I don't want to believe that that's really all she is. But, you know, there is that as a possibility, I guess. At the center of the cosmology, there is also the sun, which is more so supposed to be represented by Anshe. As we're finding out, though, there's a possibility that the soul within our planet is quite literally the sun. So, you know, what that means for us is, you know, open to interpretation. Moving on. One of the first things to note in this book is changes to things like the cosmology map. So one of the first things I noticed, of course, is that the cosmology chart has been updated. The only thing that is different on this cosmology chart is the position and labeling for necromantic entities right here. This used to say undead. Now it says the eternal ones. So that's obviously been added there, and everything else is the same. But yeah, they replaced undead with the eternal ones. So there's that. Didn't Egwene sink it, or am I misremembering that? Probably she did that. Temple of Elune was a place not originally in possession by the Legion. Does that maybe hint that the Titans didn't originally possess the seat of the Pantheon? Maybe. So I want to read you guys the introduction, because I do think reading the whole introduction is worth it. Let me read this to you. It says, long ago, 7 Titans born of order. So this is stuff that wasn't really not overtly stated in the other Chronicle volumes, but now they're kind of just overtly stating it. Long ago, 7 Titans born of order wandered the great dark beyond. And so I wonder if this implies that there were maybe 7 Titans that weren't born of order, or other Titans in general that weren't born of order, and maybe of light, of chaos, of life, of the elements or something like that. It says here, they wandered the great dark beyond. Together, these godlike beings searched the universe for world souls, essences of incredible power and potential that could one day awaken as titans themselves. When they discovered a world with such potential, they would bring order to the planet and seed it with myriad life forms, hoping to call forth the world soul within so that they might nurture it to maturity. Muatek, thank you very much for the sub. Appreciate that. Thank you. One titan, Sargeras, encountered a corrupted world soul tainted by agents of the void, monstrous creatures known as old gods. If the corrupted world soul were allowed to reach maturity, it would give birth to a destructive void creature of considerable power. Terrified by the implications of his discovery, Sargeras decimated this corrupted world before it could rise in service to the void. What's funny is that Sargeras basically becomes the destructive force. Sargeras returned to the Pantheon of Titans to report his discovery, but he was enraged to find that his kin opposed his actions. Eonar, the Lifebinder, reminded her brother of their vow to protect living things. Agramar urged his mentor that there must be another way to defeat the Void Lords. But Sargeras refused to allow the Void Lords a chance at raising their champion. To his mind, a dead universe would be better than one consumed by the void. After spending millennia hunting and locking demons in the Twisting Nether away in Mardum, the plane of banishment, Sargeras shattered the prison he'd built and freed them. With their fell magic, he rained destruction on many worlds across the Great Dark Beyond. It was on one of these worlds that he was confronted by his former lieutenant, the Titan Agramar. The two met in battle, and though Agramar was far outmatched against his mentor's fell magic, he was able to escape and inform the Pantheon of Sargeras' plans. Amenthul, leader of the Titan Pantheon, or so it seems anyway, told Sargeras of their discovery of Azeroth, a slumbering world soul that possessed more potential than the Titans had ever known. This world could awaken as the mightiest Titan and ensure the defeat of the Void Lords. Amenthul hoped that this news might sway his brother from his campaign of destruction, but Sargeras was unmoved. He met the entire Pantheon in battle, and with his fell powers, defeated each one, though he could not know what the magic of his brother, Norgannon, ensured that the Titan's spirits survived. So he had no idea. Again, I really think that this was done before they got in a fight with him. Though he could not know that the magic of his brother Norgannon ensured that the Titan's spirits survived. So again, it claims in Chronicle Volume 1 that this was something that happened in the moment, but I don't think it was. I think that the Titans basically soulstoned themselves before they went and they fought Sargeras. That's like the most logical conclusion I have for it, is this was done preemptively. It doesn't make sense that Norgannon would have been able to do it during the fight, and the fact that Sargeras would have been completely unaware of it happening seems really obnoxious if it really happened in the fight. You know? I feel like this is something done preemptively. Ensure that our spirit survives, basically lich shit. Yeah, honestly, phylactery type shit. Yeah, this is kind of like a summary, this part. Yeah. Yeah, so anyway, says, nonetheless, Sargeras and his army of demons, the Burning Legion, set out across the universe to slay any world souls that remained. He would not stop until the entire universe was dead, depriving the void of its victory. His ultimate target would be the world that the Titans believed held so much promise, Azeroth. This planet's slumbering world soul held the potential to decide the fate of the universe. Should Sargeras succeed in his quest to slay Azeroth, all life upon it would perish, and the universe would irreparably be lost to the forces of disorder. Only a unified front comprised of all Azeroth's people could hope to defeat Sargeras. But factional conflicts had consumed Azeroth's denizens. With things as they stood, it seemed the champions of the world might not even survive long enough to face the Dark Titan. What the fuck is she? Azeroth is creation. That's what she is. So moving forward, it talks about the jailer stuff and Sylvanas. The second page is talking about the jailer and Sylvanas. So I'm going to read you this because this is what it says. I'm just going to read it. In her days among the living, Sylvanas Windrunner was a leader and champion for her people, the High Elves. She fought valiantly amid the Lich King's scourge invasion of Quel'Thalas, only to be tragically felled by the blade of his Death Knight, Arthas Menethil. But Arthas, soon to become the Lich King himself, would not let Sylvanas lie peacefully in death. With great delight, he used his powers to raise the vanquished hero as a powerful undead banshee. Under his direct control, Sylvanas was forced to serve in the Lich King's undead army, to massacre the people who once had been her friends and allies. I'm gonna be honest, I feel like this is a fractal for something else. However, Sylvanas refused to be subjugated for long. After the demon hunter Illidan led his own assault on the Frozen Throne, the Lich King was greatly weakened. And this is TFT, stuff that I'm gonna have to play through. As his control over Sylvanas began to waver, she led her fellow banshees and other undead to revolt and freedom. When the Lich King re-emerged after years of dormancy in the Frozen North, Sylvanas and her Forsaken fought alongside the combined forces of the Horde, Alliance, Ebon Blade, and Argent Crusade in the final charge against the Lich King at Icecrown Citadel. Although Sylvanas was unable to slay the Lich King herself, she was somewhat satisfied with having contributed to Arthas' demise. She remained disappointed, however, that Bolvar Fordragon had taken on the Helm of Domination to control the Scourge, believing the helm itself should have been destroyed. Still, her vengeance achieved, Sylvanas saw little left for her in the realm of the living. Intent on finding peace in the next world, she threw herself from the top of Icecrown Citadel. Unfortunately, Sylvanas did not find herself in a contented afterlife alongside the family and loved ones she had lost. Instead, her spirit was conducted to the Maw, a torturous wasteland reserved only for the most irredeemable souls in the universe, including her original tormentor, Arthas. As she drifted, agonized and alone, through the hellscape, Sylvanas was rescued by a dark and mysterious entity called the Jailer. He claimed to be one of the first ones, leaders of the Eternal Ones is what it says, not the first ones. That's my bad. Leaders of the myriad realms of the Shadowlands, and told her that he had been banished by his kin and bound to the Maw itself. The Jailer showed Sylvanas how her soul had been sent to the Maw unjustly. The spirits of the dead were being conducted to their final rest by a cold and detached Eternal One, known as the Arbiter. This Arbiter assigned souls to afterlives, some beautiful and serene, others malignant and terrifying, in an indifferent, dispassionate manner, without regard for their own desires. It's interesting that they're basically trying to make it seem like Zovaal valued those things. Like Zovaal was using that as a manipulation tactic, basically to say, but it also shows that Zovaal has a concept for that type of thinking, which I think is really fascinating. Like, if Zovaal was the original Arbiter, basically how this is coming off to me is the Jailer is basically telling Sylvanas in this Arbiter assigning souls to afterlives in an indifferent, dispassionate manner without regard for their own desires. I almost kind of feel like this is basically the Jailer saying, like, that's what I would have done. Like, if I was still the Arbiter, I wouldn't be indifferent and dispassionate. That's not how the Arbiter's supposed to work. And that's kind of almost how it came off to me. Claiming that he had been condemned to an unjust fate, as Sylvanas had, the Jailer proposed joining forces. Together, they could assemble an army to wage war on the Eternal Ones. They would destroy the Arbiter and reshape the cycle of life and death into something that was fair and suitable for every mortal, but we know that that's not really what the Jailer was going to do. Although the plan appealed to her sense of justice, Sylvanas rightfully suspected that the Jailer was hiding something from her. She would need some proof of his intentions. To demonstrate the truth of his words, the Jailer told her 5 prophecies that would aid her in the days to come. A fiery darkness would return. She would step out of the shadows and lead. A blade would pierce the heart of the world. She would hold the world blood from that wound in her hand and sense its power. And lastly, she would topple a king and shatter the sky. As one last gesture of his benevolence, the Jailer released Sylvanas from the Maw and agreed to return her to the land of the living. One last gesture of his benevolence, by the way. To accompany her, he further sent powerful spirits known as Valkyr. If her life was ever threatened in the future, these Valkyr would valiantly sacrifice themselves in her stead. Or she could use a Valkyr to raise a new Forsaken. One Valkyr, Anhilda, sacrificed herself to the Maw in that very moment, to take the Dark Lady's place. While Sylvanas was born back to the mortal realm, despite the value of these gifts, Sylvanas remains skeptical of the jailer's true intentions. Only time would tell if the jailer's prophecies held any truth. Perhaps then she would reconsider his proposal. So there is that. Pelagos becoming Arbiter actually acknowledges the judging with souls with compassion, correct. When the Eternal Ones tried to recreate the Arbiter, they completely disregarded that the Arbiter is supposed to have compassion. And you want to know why? Because I don't know that they really have compassion. And if the Eternal Ones do, then what does that say? The Eternal Ones aren't the ones who made the Arbiter. That's what they say, but I think many of us are very sus of that. I'm a little sus of that. I think the Titans probably made the Arbiter, personally, but I can't prove that.